Hi, my name is Katerina, and here is my presentation. So I'm going to start off with this quote. One is not born a woman, one becomes a woman. A famous quote by Simone de Beauvoir, which I'm definitely going to come back to for inspiration during all of this project. So the first step in our design process was brainstorming, and we knew we wanted to tackle women's health and feminism. So we started by discussing among ourselves some ideas and some different concepts around the taboo around menstruation and how we felt about it, how we felt ourselves the male gaze in the past. And for those of you who don't know what the male gaze is, it's the act of depicting women in the world, in the visual arts, in literature, from a masculine heterosexual perspective. So it ends up representing women as sexual objects for the pleasure of the male viewer, which of course is not ideal. So that's one thing that we really focus on, but we also debated a bit how gender roles were affecting our personality, our hobbies, our choice of career, and we took a lot of inspiration from different pieces concerning women's health and feminism, from artwork to academic papers, and at least but not last, of course, the great writer that I have already mentioned, the pioneer feminist Simone de Beauvoir. And then the next step in our process was to conduct some surveys to understand what we wanted to tackle. So we decided to just not limit ourselves and ask questions about all of these topics. So about menstruation, about the male gaze, about self-image, about gender roles, about imposter syndrome in workplace, depending on genders, and about feminists viewed from different nationalities. Since we're studying in an international master's, of course, we get that perspective. And we decided that the answers that were most insightful were when we asked women how much they felt the male gaze. Actually, out of 18 responses, 11% said that they feel the male gaze always. A third said that they feel it often. Another third said that they feel it sometimes. And 22% said that they rarely feel it. But actually, not one single response said that they have never felt it. Some words that they used to describe themselves physically were also often negative and showing an expectation to fit a certain beauty ideal, which you can see in these words already. And then when we talked to men, when we asked them if they thought that they were enjoying equal rights as females in society, 57% said that they did think so, and 42% said they didn't think so. So that's already quite a split opinion about this question. And then some words that they used to describe themselves physically were both positive and negative, to be fair, but they had much stronger connotations with strength and attractiveness. So what were the things that we decided to work on and tackle with this specific project? So 3 main things. 1, poor or dysmorphic body perception, which we're calling here skewed body perception. Objectification of women, may it be in media like movies, books, and advertisements, but also in our daily lives, just walking in the street. And then also very strict gender roles, both for men and women, about appearance. So our goal was to create an experience for women. Of course, men can also experience it, but we're designing it for women, to raise awareness about how the male gaze affects them and how it affects their self-perception, and to help improve their self-esteem. So let's just try it out without further ado, so I don't do any more spoilers. So this is our project, and we can see that there's a little animation, and I'm going to go ahead and click start. And once I do, there's a loading animation,
the young
and
girl
the
feels that her
experience
body
starts.
is getting away from her.
It's no longer the straightforward expression of her individuality.
So I can see that in the background that there are negative comments.
For others a thing.
On the street, men follow her with their eyes.
And I can hear whispers in the background, but I can also hear female voices saying one of Simone de Beauvoir's quotes.
The young girl feels that her body is getting away from her.
If I hover on top of the female expression, I see that her body shape is changing. If I just hover elsewhere, I see that I have eyes tracking my movement and always following me around. If I click on the background, the volume of the whispers also increases. The trace that I'm leaving behind with my mouse movement is irreversible and it's permanent.
It becomes foreign to her, and at the same time, she becomes for others a thing.
On the street, men follow her with their eyes
and comment on her anatomy.
I'm gonna go ahead and go to the
It
next
frightens
step,
her to
which I can
become
see an arrow
flesh
here for.
and to show her flesh.
So now I'm asked to input a negative word I identify with myself. And I have some issues with body perception, of course, as most of us does. So I'm gonna go ahead and input fat. And it's asking me if I wanna choose to open my camera or not. And I'm gonna go ahead and say yes. So once I do, I can see myself and I can see that it's telling me I'm not in fact the word I just inputted, and it's telling me to instead look at myself in this camera and say these affirmations to myself. So I can go ahead and say, I am unique, I am myself, I am strong, I am worthy, and I am beautiful. And that's the experience that we designed. So let's continue back to the presentation. So the next step in our design process after the surveys and after identifying our problem was to start prototyping. So to do so, we actually started with some sketches and some storyboards, and we came up with the idea to visualize the male gaze in a digital way. So let's say that a human body is displayed on the screen and it becomes more and more feminine when users interact with it. But we also wanted to end it with a positive note. We wanted to destroy unhealthy body images. So we started doing some sketches, and then we iterated our idea all the way into a final design concept, elaborated into a Figma prototype. The next step in our process was that to be able to iterate it and improve it from a user-centered perspective, we conducted user testings, and we also presented it in a class so we could get some feedback. So we tested our Figma prototype with 3 different users and showed it in the class. And we decided to improve it by deleting some features, for example, the camera distortion that we had initially planned, improving connection between the flow from beginning to end, and also offering the possibility to use or not the camera, since black screen doesn't always allow for reflection depending on the environment it's in, and the camera is quite invasive, so it's up to the user. We ended up by adding some powerful audio that I think really took it to another level, and we improved the design and the animation that it had. And so we started implementing once we were ready for it. And we did so with p5.gs, and of course we came across quite a lot of bugs, but it was fun to improve it and explore different usages. And finally, we had a few different final design sprints to really finish it and have a polished product. So we came across different breakdowns, and for every breakdown we would realize, should we improve it, should we not improve it, do we need research on this? And a lot of them were very simple things that we had not ourselves thought because we had bias, because we were the ones designing it, but we ended up solving them with just additional design or some coding details. And we even ended up having actually suggestions from the users themselves on things that we could improve. For example, one of them mentioned that pink eyes, which you used to have, and the pink trace didn't really suggest the presence of a male gaze. We should use a more stereotypically male color, so we replaced it with blue. So right now, this is the summary of the design concept that we have. So we have 2 different parts, the male gaze and the self gaze, and they're actually connected because it's a continuous experience. So you go from the male gaze to the self gaze. And in the male gaze, we have eye tracking because we're tracking your mouse movements. In the background, you have negative comments commonly heard by women that we just took from public online resources. You have background whispers to give you the idea of a crowd and of you being judged. And we have Simone de Beauvoir's quote said by female voices. And the interactions that you have is that when you interact with the body, its shape becomes more and more stereotypically feminine, simulating accumulated male gaze. The trace of the mouse that you leave is irreversible and permanent, like I mentioned before, to illustrate how judgment just really stays with you even after it happens. And when clicking on the background, you can intensify the whispers, so you can simulate overwhelming crowds. And then in the self-gaze, we want the user to be forced to reflect on her body image and to be encouraged to improve it. So we want her to dismantle any negative words they associate with themselves and replace it with positive affirmations. Also, the option to use or not a camera, of course, was something that we took into consideration due to privacy reasons. And the further improvements that we would love to work on is updating from just mouse tracking to actual eye movement tracking, so where you were looking on the screen in this experience. We also want to make it responsive, and we want to find more ways to improve self-esteem other than positive informations. And overall, obviously, we just want to explore how we can represent the male gaze and how we can be clearer, informative, maybe make it also for male users. So this is our team. We're Tinging, Tianan, Bekian, and Katarina, me. And we're very happy to have worked on this project and quite happy with the result as well. So thank you for watching.